It up to Jens, some applause. There you go.
Thank you. So, I run Angel Invest. We make about 1 to 2 investments per week in AI, fintech, climate tech, startups as early as possible. We also run a thing called the Technology Briefing Center, where we have, it's like a think tank where we think about where we should invest, where our LPs who invest in our funds should spend their time, what technology solutions they should buy. We have 3 analysts in there. We have AI, it's Robin. We have fintech, it's Danny. Danny is over there. And then we have Jonathan, who's doing climate. And today I want to talk a little bit about AI game theory, if you like. So it's sort of like a very, very, very macro view of how I think about AI, really. So if you think about it, it starts at the atoms down here, and then up here you have customers, and at the bottom you have the hardware. That's the sort of the historical cloud stack. And you have tools, and then you have applications. That's kind of the stack how we've lived in software before, up until 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah? So that was kind of nice. The VCs all had these kind of models, and they know, if the number is like this, then it's good. And then suddenly, you have basically a distribution here where the bottom half is 50% and the upper half is 50%. So the infrastructure layer is about 50%, and then everything on the top is about 50% of the enterprise value. And suddenly you have these things called intelligences, or AIs, or LLMs, whatever you want to call it, but they're basically machine intelligences, and they invade. Suddenly they're there, and they're somewhere in the middle. Yeah? And what they do is they push up. Yeah? Suddenly there is more hardware, much more hardware value. The cloud becomes much more useful, and the intelligences, the value that they accrue, also goes up. And they squeeze against the tools and the application layer, right? And then all the guys up there think, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Is it go all the way to the top? Are we all gone? And people say, oh yeah, basically of Microsoft, they say, well, if you're up there, you're just like you're just nowhere, your database, but basically it's all AI. Yeah? Why? Because he has their own hardware, and they also obviously buy NVIDIA, and then they have their own cloud, and they have intelligences, and it's going all the way to the top, right? So, and then the guys, the tools guys, they say, oh, maybe we should go open source, everything is free, but how do we make money? Nobody knows. And the application guys, they think, how much is that? The customers are confused, everybody's confused. That's sort of where we are right now, right? So, when I think about that, and I say, okay, where does enterprise go? I think enterprise goes a little like this, that this is like the night sky. And then you have all these little applications, not so little, each one is like a 10 billion company. So let's say you have one in sales, there's an SDR thing, there's a marketing thing, there's a CRM, ERP, logistics, procurement, compliance, legal, banking, tax, accounting, whatever, right? Lending, equity, etc. So an enterprise will have dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of these. These are horizontal AI systems, intelligent systems running inside the enterprise all the time, continuously. So these are all vertical, but you can also have, these are all horizontal, you can also have vertical ones. Oh, there is one that does insurance claims processing, or you can have one that does, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I think the most important thing is to understand, if you think about this, is that all of these will actually talk to each other. They will all be completely networked. Every single AI will talk to every single other AI without any humans in the loop. The AIs will just sit there, continuous data exchange within the enterprise, and then to the outside. So these systems will also talk to other companies on the outside. Yeah? And that's basically what's already happening. There are a couple of things that are really important to understand about that. So for example, we invested in a banking AI company, and now we're investing in an accounting AI company, and the tax one, and we are maybe investing in a lending company, and then we've already invested in, and all of these companies these systems optimize for each other, right? So they are growing up as a network of startups that are already, oh, you want to have the perfectly synchronized thing to plug into this? Oh, yeah. We invested in an ERP startup, you did as well, right? So it's basically, that's then going to talk to a whole bunch of these other systems. It's also talking to the outside, although I haven't drawn the arrow here and things like that. The really interesting thing happens is when you say, oh wow, what I actually want, I want the master control system. Yeah? Think about, you're the head of strategy of a big company and you say, what should I optimize here? AI calculated. And the AI says, you should really swap out this software and put this other software, and efficiency will go up like this, costs will go down, and costs will optimize like that. And actually what you should really buy is you should buy this company and plug that in here because, that's the future. Absolutely 100% certain. Yeah. And so if you then think about all of that, right, and you think that effectively management and large enterprises will control everything like that, I think that, I know what you think now, lots of money, yeah. And if you're building something like that, you need to email me at this email address, very important this. But that's sort of my April 1st slide presentation. Anyway, the important thing is that if you think about it like this, there will be this master system that the enterprises will use. You think, oh, it's like, I don't know, does it even exist? What is it called? There are actually companies that are building this. In consumers, in China, they know what these things are called. They already exist. Yeah? We don't have that. They have the master apps. They control for social consumers. That is the thing. Why do you think Elon Musk bought Twitter, call it X? He wants to have that thing. He's figured that out. That's the game plan of X, right? Is to build that. That's what this is all about. Anyway, and obviously, I'm 100% convinced the guys at Microsoft and Google, they would love to have something like that, right? Just imagine you have a customer where you provide the cloud and the intelligence and the master, and you basically own the entire company. You rule the entire, you rule the enterprise through the entire stack. They have a bunch of important applications, and the rest is sort of pocket change. Yeah? But maybe this is also much more of an open source play. Maybe it's a totally different company. Maybe it's a different, and I'm also convinced Meta wants to build that. Yeah? Anyway, so you will have a whole series of these, and the interesting thing about this, they have a potential to bring equilibrium into the stack, because there's a counter pressure that comes from the other side, where the master systems, through the applications, can actually, through the control of the applications and the network and the data in the applications, push back against the supply that comes from the other side. Yeah? So therefore, the question really is, and we can debate that now, as a startup, where do you want to position yourself? Where do you go? How do you do that? Do you want to play in the hardware space? I just invested in a compiler company, very interesting software to optimize hardware. Yeah? Do you want to invest in, the people who make the most money in startup land right now, without question, are the optimizers of intelligence. They're doing the 3-4-year-old companies that are doing billions in revenue. Nobody knows who they are, but they do exist. The tools companies, that's an interesting space. We've invested there as well. The question is really, how do you position that? How do you play that? Because you will get squeezed strategically from both sides, and they all tell me that, and it's not a secret. The applications, some of these will get, the intelligences will go straight all the way through to the end. They'll do it themselves because it's too simple. This is already happening in cloud, so we'll see the same thing again. Others will be clearly driven from the other side. And then the question is, how do you have this emergence of this entire control system or the master system, or whatever you end up calling that? Somebody would give it a fancy name. I doubt we'll call it the master system. But for the purpose of this presentation, it's probably relatively sufficient. Yeah? So that is it. what do you think? If you're a startup, if you're an investor, where do you want to, this is just for enterprise, but there would be an equivalent type of map for consumer. Yeah? Because it's just it's different apps, it's a different way in which the whole thing will unfold. But effectively it will be very, very similar, I think. Yeah. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Just an idea, actually.
Yeah.
Question. What you're calling master here,
Yeah.
From my perspective, is kind of the category leader or the category champion. And you will have several of those stacks that are highly interlinked. And on the top of each stack, you will have the category leader that kind of dominates the industry in that space, whether it's business to business or business to consumer.
Yes.
So in the end, I think this is how it will play out. It will all be highly interconnected, it will kind of optimize itself, and do a land grab in terms of new business. And what you just said in terms of those billion-dollar revenue companies, especially in the intelligence and tool space, those guys will largely be the glue in between the two main layers, and this is how it will play out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think in a sense, this is the other way around. Probably maybe I should have flipped this around, because this will sit on the top effectively, and then there will be an infrastructure player from the bottom. And then all of these applications will sit in the middle. And some of these will come from one or the other end. And then there will be a bunch of stuff that sits in between and glues it all together. Yeah? And I think each of these is a $10 billion company. So this is not to be sneezed at, but that one here is a $1 trillion company. Yeah? So obviously as an investor, if I could pick that one, that's sort of that's the ultimate one. Yeah? So I think that's, I agree. That's how I look at it.
That's a brilliant analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. So you didn't put humans in there, I guess on purpose, right? Or
No, I didn't.
in this, I mean, yes.
Up there.
No, exactly, but in this other graphic.
Yeah.
So I guess so the statement is that humans are not needed, right? In that case anymore, because there is this system that does all the strategic management, strategic decisions, management, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
This is the idea you want to communicate?
The idea that I wanted to communicate is how we're transitioning from a sort of cloud software stack, how that works into this new world of AI. And that is and neither in the cloud stack nor in the AI stack is there, the human is at the same side. They're the consumers or the customers of the ultimate output of the system. So this is a technology view, not a human-machine interaction view. That's a completely different question, actually, that I haven't tackled in the presentation at all.
Okay, so when you said something about before humans took like decision on to buy the company and to sell, and now we have this new thing, this master that actually takes the decision of switching. I mean, humans were doing this before, so you think then humans would not be even hindering this process. Like if a human would intervene and say, "Oh no, I know better. We should not sell this," and then it would even decrease the performance. You think it will go that way?
I think it's certainly an element of that way, for sure. Because I've written intelligences here. I mean, these are machine intelligences. It's an easier way to think of. I find it easier to think about it like that than to think about AI. AI is like a super abstract word. But if I say actually you have intelligences that live in a computer, and don't forget, maybe when I am like 90 or something in a few decades, then maybe I upload into the machine. Maybe the whole distinction between human intelligences and machine intelligences blurs over the next 20 years. Maybe there's a computer, eventually there are already humans who have computers plugged into their brain, literally. So it's highly possible that it's extremely likely that that this will completely blur and become one thing. And I'm not making a judgment call. I just think machines are very, very good at one thing that humans are not very good at, which is taking a lot of data from disparate sources at the same time, ingesting it, analyzing it, and drawing conclusions in ways that humans find very, very difficult to do, right? But don't forget, I mean, right now, the machines work for us. Yeah, so they're to make our lives better. We are the consumers. We are the end beneficiaries of all of that. How that's going to go, nobody knows. Yeah. But I think that's I didn't even try to answer that kind of question set with this. This is a completely different. This is a technology question, not a philosophical or moral question or something like that. We can have a completely separate discussion about that if you like.
In 2017, I got offered a CTO role at a now very well-known AI company, with $1 billion now. I decided and said no, and I went in,
I've seen the pictures, yeah.
Yeah, so my team built software of that. I'm talking to a lot of enterprise companies like SAP, to the C-level and so on. I know those strategies, what they are going to, where they are going to, and what they are building. And I think they know already that the application layer is at the end, right? They split it already, the company, into two sections, the ERP part and the AI part. So, and the sales in the ERP part is only going down, it's not going up anywhere. So, the biggest problems what I see right now is the knowledge gap in the companies. So you still need humans buying something, and they are not educated. They have literally, in the small medium-sized enterprise, they have no clue what's coming and what's happening. Satya said on the Build conference in a one-on-one that he thinks that moving forward, Europe is much behind, and it's because of we are Europeans, right? Right now I have the feeling that we are just too, not too stupid, but it's the wrong word, right? To see what's coming there. But in a nutshell, I made a concept, so I studied math, and then we made a concept in 2007 to 2011 and sold it then to Palantir, and it was directed hyper-edge graphs. And that's a kind of storage layer that you need for decision-making in future LLMs. There's a lot of research on that, and I think that there's a missing part by heart. I believe in that. There's a missing part in the intelligence layer, and this will fill up in 5 to 10 years from now. And a logical thinking AI system that then will be available will in a minute overtake SAP or whatever application that's in the application layer and just simulate then the ERP to a very far extent. We will see companies that just, it's the CFO and the head of finance because you need some people legally that are in charge of something, but every repeatable task will be done by an AI, agentic AI system. And the rollout will be very seamless then. You just install the system, it asks you for access and API keys for your enterprise systems, and it then will run for a week or something, and then you will shut down the other systems. Very easy. But right now I have a much more actual real problem. I don't get the freaking hardware, right? So we bought for 2 million NVIDIA hardware for launch to decide to shut down or not. And you wait for years to get this. And no one actually, I don't want to upload my data to the US, right? So it's not available. It's still not available. And that's the biggest issue I see right now. We have all these nice ideas, everything, but everything goes to Silicon Valley and all the data is going there. And if you think social media was a big thing in terms of data, this is all kindergarten compared to that, right? So just my 2 cents.
I'm going to respond to some of those statements because there was no question, but
Thank you.
So the first one is obviously it's completely possible that all of this fuses into one. Yeah, that's one version of how this might play out. I think that is in the long run actually not unlikely. Yeah, in the short to medium term, meaning short to medium term, I don't want to put any years to it, but I think there are a couple of reasons. So I thought about if I believe that all of this is going to happen then I shouldn't spend any time on this at all. That's literally a waste of my life to spend any time at all in this space. Yep. So, and that's and I thought about whether I should just invest in climate, energy, maybe even rockets or something like that. It's like the physical things with real factories and real stuff, and maybe just focus 100% on that. But then I thought, and this is why I put these counter arrows in here, because I think there are drivers. So from the, and they are societal, they are regulatory, and there are conflicts of interest. And I think those three in combination probably mean that for the purpose of my work over the next 10 years or something like that, I think this will not happen that quickly, because it will just take longer than it will happen, but not in the next 10 years or something like that. And then meanwhile, I think this is going to end up a bit more like that than not. Yeah. So that's that. Yes, the hardware is a problem. Much more permanent or much more interesting problem is also energy. Where is the hardware going to sit? How is it going to be powered? Right. And then you also made a comment on Germany. I mean, if you think about energy in Germany, the expense of that, if you think about the data protection layers that we have, the workers' unions, decision-making power, and things like that, and the time all of this takes, the overall, there are a lot of things. So I'm not pessimistic, but by nature, but a lot of things that are worth fixing. I think that's the right way of saying that. Yeah? Because in an ideal scenario, we have super modern power plants. There are probably nuclear power plants realistically, with the hardware right next to that, and then there's a lot of afueras that we can do in German politics that are really worth doing.
Just to add to the energy point, because I've recently been in a lot of discussions with representatives from the United States government about energy. And when you recall the discussion or the speech or the lecture that J.D. Vance gave in Paris at the AI Summit, it was more of a lecture, I think. He basically said, are you guys with America or are you not with America? That was a clear question to me. And every third word was energy. And that's the sentiment I just wanted to convey to you, is that America, in its current state, is highly scared that for the AI revolution, that I kind of foresee like you here, energy will run out.
Yeah, it's a real worry. Yeah. It's a real, that is a real, because our energy policy should be that we should minimize at all costs the cost of electric energy. And Strom muss so billig wie möglich sein. Es muss das höchste. And then actually, if you think about that, if you say, oh, what about the environment? If everything was run by electric power in Germany, we would immediately halve our CO2 bill. Yeah? And this has got physical reasons. If you ask somebody in the Bundestag, I'm not sure what percentage of the people there actually know this, and then what percentage understand that. But it's a physical fact. Yeah? And so I think we should electrify everything and make electricity as cheap as we can possibly make it, irrespective of how we produce it in the short term. And then we need to think about a medium and long-term strategy how to transition. But that should be our energy policy in Germany, not what we're doing now, which is clearly not working at all.
Yeah, just one single thing to add to this, and I fully agree. What we need to democratize is access to energy and bring the costs down to the lowest extent possible.
Absolutely.
To be competitive. And the other thing is compute.
Yes.
The same thing.
Yes.
Compute needs to be cheap.
Yes.
And this will democratize things in a pretty good way.
Yes, correct. I think
Only one last remark to the application here. If I as a CDO or CIO, I want to buy something that is mature enough, that's safe enough, right, that I can run my SAP on, right?
Yeah.
So multi-million-dollar transactions in the SAP need to be safe and physically good executed. And most most AI stuff, the cutting edge stuff that I really like that's available is not at the maturity level that I can introduce that in a larger company.
Yes.
And I think most of my Silicon Valley friends have all one problem. They never went to a shop floor and see how this works. Right? They're building physical stuff. They have no clue actually how a shop floor works.
Yes.
That's why they're building MCP connectors to Salesforce, right? Or Notion. But I need that to Siemens, right? And Team Center.
I just agreed to invest in a company that's building an AI system to design the physical world, where the design is made backwards from the engineering. So I said, this is a piece that's good for manufacture, or that can be easily manufactured, I think is the right way of saying it. And it has been proven to fit with others. So that what this is, so it's retrofitting from the physical, so from the shop floor, as you say it, into the CAD. Yeah?
Let's talk.
Great. I think I may have run out. I don't know how much time we've got.
Yeah, there's one question to you. So, um eine Lanze für ihn zu brechen auf Deutsch. I know Jens for years. I think this is the living supercomputer. So if you ask Jens a question, you can see how his hardware, his cloud, his intelligence is working and gives you a structured answer back, which is absolutely crazy. So if you ask him whatever you want on one topic, it's always great, and invite him for a steak and champagne. But that's not my question, Jens. So my question is, so when I look at it, what you just displayed, and I love the storytelling for Lord of the Rings, right? The one ring to bound them all and to rule them all. But
It's also a cautionary tale, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I do see, in my view, in my vision, an evolution, and let me phrase it like this. So I see a parallel evolution between man and technology here. So what you describe, in a way, right? With the body, the form, the mind, the soul, the conscious, the thoughts. So this is what's happening. So I'm asking myself, is this rather than we become attached to the machine, or the other way around? So I do see parallels here, and this would be my question. So how do you see it in this perspective?
I mean, that is really unknown. There are quite a few. I've read a lot of science fiction books in my life. I mean, like actually a lot, like over 1,000 easily. And there are quite a few different variants of how people have thought about how the future might unfold, right? And they're quite different from each other. Now it goes all from we just become bits, and we actually don't walk. We're just information that moves. Therefore, you don't have spaceships because it's hard. You just beam consciousness across the universe all the way to, I don't know, obviously machines take over, we are all dead, all the way to we live in harmony, and it's more like the culture, Ian Banks type thing. Because there's so many different variants of this. I don't know, I might see the beginning of that at the end of my life, or I upload into the machine and I might see it for much longer, right? So that's and I don't know, but I actually think it feels possible that if the next cycle after this one, so in 10, 15 years when the AI cycle that we currently have comes to its conclusion, then we'll have the next big paradigm shift, and it's perfectly possible that that's a man-machine combination. Yeah? So if energy becomes super cheap, which it will, not everywhere, but somewhere, and then man and machine will melt, and then the next big cycle will be around that. So I'll be when I'm at the autumn of my life, I'll be at the beginning of that, and then maybe that means I can actually upload into the machine. Yeah, so that's sort of definitely in the realm of the possible.
Let me really quick follow up on this one, because
I'm really
Anyway.
sorry.
one word, please. So what you say is really interesting, because what you said is, and what I discovered, so there's a lot in the field of quantum physics, right? You know that, and quantum entanglement when you talk about this. And there's people researching on if there's conscious and information fields in everything that is dense, like material. So this is very interesting. So maybe it's all information already.
That is almost metaphysical. Yeah?
Maybe.
But it's not. I mean, look, I I just wanted to give a presentation on a technology stack. So I didn't want to go all that way up. So then we can, as I said, it's a different question set. That's not, just so we should make a different presentation about that. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, one last person is William.
Yeah, sure. It's
Waiting
your
to ask
event.
the last
I'm
question.
just standing
Time's
here.
up. So, one quick last one.
If we go back to the application and tech layer, is interesting insight in general. But do you think there is, given this whole master system, there is one winner take it all? And secondly, like given how, if you talked about enterprises, given how SAPs and IBMs and Microsofts are so integrated within the enterprises so much today, do you think any new startup or new tech company has a chance of becoming a master?
Yeah, I mean, I hope. You know what? I actually think there is a. If startups adopt an open source software model approach, they have a real shot at building that. Yeah. So the best open source, the one with the most momentum up here, that could actually be a startup. You will, at the same time, you will have the big technology corporations. They will all do that, or maybe not. So the argument is this is so important they have to do that. But then, is it really? Because what will the regulators say? Will they come and split my company in half? It's actually very likely. Too much power. You know? So maybe I'm better off to not do that and to actually push out. You know, if I was Google, I would fund 100 startups to build that. Yeah? Why? Because I can then build the intelligence layer, which does most of the work. Look, they will control 60, 70, maybe even 80% of all the money. Yeah? So you can leave some crumbs to somebody else and say, look, it's only $1 trillion. They can do that. If you think about it, it's so much value that will accrue. It's not just, I can't even show this, the difference in the software industry right now is actually relatively small. Yeah? It's not that big. Really, I mean, it's a lot of brouhaha about it, but there's so many other industries that are so much bigger. But through the intelligences, and when you then combine robots into that, this will grow hundreds of folds. Yeah? So, and then there's so much money and value here, and you need to have a counterbalancing system, because otherwise the danger is that really there are one or two systems that rule everything. And that's actually really bad for society. So I think the regulators will understand that, and they will push against that. And I think the companies will, you know, going up here, there's a lot of details, a lot of messiness with all of these little applications, and yes, maybe all of that fuses, and it's all one and the same thing, but whatever. But I think if you give something away to this side here, probability is that there will be a this, and there will be the between, and then there will be this, because structurally, from a effective eventual value capture perspective for the enterprises, for the large technology companies, actually better. So that's sort of where I've landed, and I think in the short term it will probably pan out like that, and in the long term I don't know what will happen, you know, but it's probably beyond the 10-year mark.
It's gonna come a little closer because it's been super interesting.